Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the quiet chaos of a basketmaker's dawn, where splinters outnumber thoughts and river mud becomes art. You blink against first light, its pale fingers prying open the workshop's stubborn shutters. Now I see you eyeing those dried reeds, thinking how rustic chic, until you remember people actually starved without these things. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Toss your location and current time in the comments. I want to know whose coffee's kicking in as my voice drags them under. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Sunlight glides across your workbench. Its gold catching on blades dulled by 10,000 cuts. Your thumbnail tests an obsidian knife's edge, a relic from when 12th century French weavers supplied merchants heading south. Splinters prick your palm like tiny deserters, each one whispering, "Abandon this madness." You ignore them. The reeds demand soaking, but the river's crusted with a skin of frost. Historians still argue whether Loire basketmakers used urine to soften fibers in winter, though I'd call that a great way to lose friends. A blackbird lands on the windowsill, its head cocked as you sort willow strands. You flick a woodlouse at it, the universal tax for unsolicited critics. Your fingers remember motions older than the stone bridges upstream, twisting, looping, submitting. A blister swells where your wedding ring once dug, 4 years gone, and your skin still keeps its ghost. That oak bucket in the corner, 4th century Gauls lined their wells with baskets like that, though theirs probably didn't double as rat hotels. You dunk a new batch of rushes, river waders swirling with last night's regrets. The reeds sink slow, like teenage boys dragged to poetry readings. Did you know Venetian merchants once traded Loire baskets as exotic Moorish art? Some truths get smuggled better than spices. Your awl slips, pricking the meat of your thumb. Blood beads along a half-finished rim, adding terracotta to nature's palette. Wipe it on your apron, the 7th stain this week. Future archaeologists will declare this a ritual design. The workshop exhales, damp wood expanding as dawn firms its grip. Twine bites into your knuckles, each pull tightening the story. Your grandmother's voice hums in your wrist tendons, a folk tune about drowned millers. Smell that, part river silt, part your own sour sweat, the musk of creation. Some monks, 1492, ledger claims basketmakers made more than coffers, whole siege engines woven from swamp grass. Debate that over your next latte. Light thickens, throwing basket skeletons against the wall. Their shadows dance like pickpockets at a fair. You dip a birch strip into beeswax, the scent conjuring stolen honeycombs from age 8. Roman legionnaires supposedly lined their shields with reed mats, though I'd take that with a grain of salt and a gallon of wine. Your stomach growls, ignored. The work tolerates no clocks. A green frog hops onto your stool, the workshop's self-appointed foreman. You spare him a beetle from your bait jar, his throat pulsing approval. By noon, you'll have shaped 17 ribs for a fishing creel, each curve judged by ancestors you'll never name. Wind riffles through unfinished baskets, their voids humming like broken flutes. Your knife finds rhythm peeling bark until willow strips gleam like fresh muscle. Forget those perfectly coiled pieces in museums. Real baskets bear scars. Yours will cradle eels, trap dreams, outlast empires, until the Loire herself decides to unravel them. Blood and reed juice stain your cuticles, nature's stubborn nail polish. You flex your hands, arthritic pops harmonizing with the river's distant grumble. Today's work begins. You wade deeper into the river's edge, the Loire's chill gnawing through your patched boots. Reeds slap your wrists like scolding ants, their sopping stalks slick with memories of last night's storm. A heron watches from the shallows, one-legged judge of your incompetent harvest. The work begins, as it always does, peeling fibers until your thumbnail throbs. Split stems release earthy musk, a scent merchants once carried from here to Paris markets. Your blade flashes, revealing white pith veins that crinkle like old maps. Historians still argue whether river baskets lined medieval banquet tables or just hauled cabbages. You vote cabbages. Nobility prefers silver platters that won't sprout algae. A bullfrog croaks by your heel, demanding tribute. You flick a waterlogged hazelnut his way. Here's your crown, Lord. He gulps it whole, usurped by his own ambition. Mid-morning sun bakes exposed mudbanks. Their cracked surfaces resemble parched lips. Wading deeper, you dredge up willow whips abandoned by spring floods, ones wrapped around a rusted axe head, some poor soul's bad day circa 1745. You pocket it. Free tool. Mud clings to your calves, cold and insistent as a beggar's hand. It's not just dirt. The Loire's silt holds ground-up oyster shells from Roman feasts. Archaeologists found a basketmaker's grave here in 92, entombed with reeds dyed Tyrian purple. Robes for fish, maybe. You hum a Breton sea shanty badly to scare off water snakes. The melody tangles with the river's gurgle. Each split reed releases a muted crack, like stepping on winter's first ice. Your fingers prune, transforming into strangers' hands. 3 swans glide past, their contempt palpable. You know that look. Same as Parisian ladies eyeing your calluses at midsummer fairs. Admire the craftsmanship, you mutter, waving a half-woven trap. They hiss. Fair enough. Noon brings the dye peddler his cart, squeaking like a tortured gull. He hawks woad and madder root, overpriced, but his indigo's mixed with blackberry wine. Secret family recipe. You trade 2 eel traps for a vial, blue for river, berry for blood. The reeds stiffen as they dry, unruly hair under a comb. You dunk them again, softening memories of their roots. Some stalks twist left, others spiral right. No one agrees why. Scholars say soil acidity, Old-timers swear it's the moon's pull on sap. A child's laughter echoes from the bridge she's lobbing stale baguettes at ducks. You whistle sharply. She freezes. Waste good bread again, you bark, and I'll weave you into a chicken coop. She flees, a blur of pigtails and petticoats. Twilight arrives uninvited, dousing the river in liquid gold. You bundle your haul, knees popping like green wood on a fire. The heron's still there, pretending not to watch, bastards probably tallying your mistakes. As shadows drown the banks, you spot something glinting in the muck. A pilgrim's badge, tarnished St. Christopher, still clinging to his staff. You spit clean it, last owner likely drowned. The river's favorite party trick, swallowing the faithful. Back on shore, you lay out tomorrow's reeds. They'll whisper all night, plotting how to slice your palms anew. The willow wakes first, thin fingers curling toward dawn's gray smear. You press a thumb into its spine, feeling the stubborn curve refuse correction. Ash splints soak in last night's rainwater, their tannins leaching brown tears into the bucket. A woodpecker hammers Morse code overhead. You answer by splitting a wand, its inner flesh pale as a nun's wrist. European basket weavers once trained willow branches around stone molds, shaping vessels without seams. You've tried it, the riverbank's too muddy for such precision. Besides, who has stones to spare when frogs keep stealing them for throne rooms? Twining begins with rebellion. Each strand fights the tension, springing loose like a freed corset. Your pinky hooks a runner, guiding it underwoven on a mare's tail twist. Grandma's voice rasps in your ear. Tighter, girl, or you'll birth a colander. The ghost smelled of camphor and sourdough. A cuckoo calls from the thicket. Time's up. You count 12 weavers per square inch necessary for holding water, useless for holding grudges. Historians still argue whether Celtic knot patterns warded off spirits or just showed off. Your blisters vote jealousy. Sweat blurs your vision as you wrestle a warped ash strip. This one's a diva, requires 5 dunks in the shallows. The Loire's silt coats it mid-tantrum. Compromise achieved. You hum a tavern song about drunk millers, missing every third note. Nearby, spiders spin gossamer hammocks between reeds. Their symmetry mocks your lopsided base. Bite me, you mutter, then apologize. Arachnids stitch wounds in Lithuanian folklore. No need to tempt fate when you've got splinters to extract. Sun climbs, transforming your work into a sundial. Shadow ribbons stretch across the half-formed basket. You pause, squinting. Something's off. The spiral tilts north by northwest, the same alignment as Chartres Cathedral. Coincidence? Probably. You spit on the rim and bend it straight. A kingfisher dives, stealing your reflection from the water. Your hands keep moving anyway, blind braiding, perfected through 30 summers. Muscle memory outranks royalty here. Cracked thumbs find grooves worn into tools older than your dead name. Lunch is a stolen apple and resentment. The core arcs toward the opposite bank. Bullfrogs belch approval. You pluck a stray fiber from your teeth, willow's final insult. Afternoon light gilds the ashes grain, each ripple a captured storm. 16th century French laws fined basketmakers for selling weak-bottomed wares. You test your base with a fist. It holds. The ghost of a Parisian inspector nods, disgruntled. Blistered palms meet split wood, a lover's quarrel resolved through sheer spite. The rhythm claims you now, overtwist, underpull, beat down, repeat. No room for doubts or dead grandmothers. Even the heron has fled, bored by perfection. Twilight slips in, staining your creation blue-black. You dunk it ceremoniously. Water bubbles through the weave, humming a lullaby. Hold it up, dripping constellations. Not bad for something made of river arguments and tree bones. Tomorrow, it'll carry eels or turnips, or somebody's shameful love letters. Tonight, it cradles moonlight, a colander for stars. The half-woven basin presses into your thigh, its willow ribs creaking like ship timbers. You brace it against a mossy rock, still damp from yesterday's storm. Morning light reveals flaws, a warped stave here, a frayed binding there. Each imperfection whispers, "Abandon me." Medieval French housemaids hauled water in willow buckets, lighter than oak, cheaper than copper. Yours will cradle trout instead, if it holds. A kingfisher jeers from the alders. Make me a nest while you're at it, you snap. The bird poops in the shallows, fair enough. Historians still argue whether these bulging sides imitated pregnant bellies or just held more cabbages. Your team gluttony. The reed under your nail agrees, protesting with every twist. 13 stitches per inch, enough to trap minnows and bad decisions, Grandma would have said. Her voice smells of rye bread today. Frogs trill near your ankle, their throats puffing with unsolicited advice. You dip the rim into the Loire. Let current tension shrink the fibers. 10th century basket law required thickness no less than a barleycorn. Water bloats your weave beyond legal specs. Let the magistrates come. You've got apple cores to throw. A horsefly lands on the handle, iridescent wings flexing like cathedral glass. You blow sharply. It moves to your temple, a living migraine. Queen of the pain-in-the-ass kingdom, you mutter. Legends claim Viking traders wore flies in amber for luck. You smear river mud instead, crude couture for peasant royalty. 4 failed attempts sag by the oak stump. Their bellies slump, pouting like kicked puppies. You hum a butcher's tune, rhythm rougher than a goose's tongue. The 5th basin mocks your persistence. Laugh now, you tell it. You'll hold onions by solstice. Bulrushes crackle as you strip their hides, pale innards glistening. Someone buried crane wife ballads under the reeds last winter. Their lyrics bleed into your knots, sorrows braided with cattail threads. Thank God no one sings it back to you. Your thumb finds the welt where tools dig, callous, forming a second knuckle. 9th century monks wrote of basket makers with hands gnarled as olive roots. You'd trade a goat for their olive oil right now. The basin shifts, nearly toppling. You steady it with a shin. Sunrise to noon swirls in water rings below. 3 ducks paddle past, judging your progress. You try weaving with webbed feet, you grumble. Their gossiping ripples outpace your punchline. Heat warps the ash splints. You dunk them again, a baptism for the obstinate. River silt coats your wrists, earth's fingerprints on stubborn flesh. Some claim Loire mud cures impotence. Based on the village birth rate, they're either liars or overachievers. The handle snaps, wood fractures clean, a betrayal without ceremony. You stare at the corpse. 6 hours unraveled. Wind carries a pheasant's chuckle across the field. Wipe your beak, you yell. I've buried better comedians than you. A spider drops onto the wreckage, skating across splintered strands. 8 legs rebuild what 2 hands destroyed. Show off, you whisper. She's earned her supper. Let her feast on horsefly royalty. Twilight turns the current mercury black. You sling the basin corpse underarm, dragging it home for kindling. Frogs chant victory odes. Your blisters harmonize. Fire consumes your failure, flames licking its curves to ash ghosts. Tomorrow's reeds wait, already smirking. You spit in the hearth, a final rebuttal. Sleep comes fitful. The Loire hums through cracked windows, its melody woven with drowned baskets. You wake to their cackles, 6 black judges perched on a drowned elm. Morning mist curls off the Loire like steam from a broth. Your blisters pulse in time with their croaks. Jury's in, you mutter, guilty of optimism. Medieval farmers trained crows to scare off locusts, a feathery militia pecking at winged invaders. These loafers just critique. One swoops low claws skimming your unfinished basket. Try contributing. You flick a reed scrap. It becomes nesting material midair. Historians still argue whether zigzag patterns warded off evil or just looked pretty in morning light. Your current weave resembles a drunkard's stitches. The crows agree. Their mimicry sounds suspiciously like grandma's tusk, tusk, tusk. River mud cakes your heel where bandages unraveled. You dip the wounded flesh, its chill a temporary truce. 15th century guild rules banned unblessed baskets from market. The bishop never mentioned avian hecklers. You improvise a sacrament, spitting in the shallows 3 times. A feather drifts into your lap, iridescent black, with a single white barb. Folklore says they steal bronze needles to build nests in Valhalla. Yours disappeared yesterday. Thief, you whisper. The bird puffs its chest, a smuggler savoring your rage. 3 attempts to resume weaving end in snapped strands. Calluses split, blooming crimson on your index knuckle. Monks wrote about basketmakers using leech slime to soothe cracked hands. Leeches sound preferable to this audience. The boldest crow lands 2 paces downstream. It cocks its head, left eye judging your technique. Hair's a mess too, you snipe. Windswept reeds do resemble your bedhead. You throw a pebble, it hops aside, unimpressed. Noon sun glares through their wings, lace shadows dancing on half-knotted rushes. One bird shrieks like a rusty hinge. You counter with your own screech. The Loire falls silent. Even frogs pause their croaking. Your stomach growls. So do theirs. A truce emerges. You scatter millet from your pouch. They pretend not to notice you working. 14 stitches later, their leader ruins it by crapping on your whetstone. A barge horn blares upstream. The flock scatters, all wing beats and offended squawks. You salute the captain unseen. His timing's better than your ex's. Twilight stains the water ink blue. Your basket boasts 3 completed rows, crooked but intact. The crows regroup on the far bank. Their critique continues, now peppered with yawns. You plait slower, louder, until their raspy lullabies blur with reed rhythm. Stars emerge as you pack up. One bird remains, glossy head tilted. You leave the ugly prototype as tribute. Let them mock its lopsided belly all night. Firelight later reveals stolen thread coiled in your satchel, jet black, and suspiciously feather adjacent. Maybe Valhalla needs a wine holder. Sleep threatens until claws skitter across the roof. You whisper a threat involving boiled crow. The noise stops. Grudging respect blooms beneath your ribs. Dawn will bring more heckling. Dawn can wait. The river licks your fresh calluses, nature's clumsy bandage. Yesterday's blisters have toughened into ridges that snag willow strands. You press harder, let friction seal the deal. 16th century weavers drank moon-steeped comfrey tea to harden their hands. You've got Loire mud and spite. Blood seeps where a reed sliced your thumb again. Instead of wiping it, you smudge crimson across the weave. Medieval French bishops called such stains devil's fingerprints, until their altars needed peasant-made reed mats. The droplet dries darker, a burgundy comma mid-sentence. Your knuckles brush dried lavender from yesterday's work. Purple dust clings to sweat lines, unplanned constellations. A traveling herbalist once swore Basketmaker's hand creases predicted floods. His proof: the Rhine respects its cousins. You check your palm. Definitely just dirt. A beetle strays into your work area, iridescent shell, catching light. You redirect it with a splinter. Entomology texts from 1492 document beetles nibbling inferior reed storage. This one's taste proves your craftsmanship. 5 stars. A. It plays dead. Historians still argue whether blood-stained baskets sold better at market, martyred aesthetics, or shoddy craftsmanship. Your current piece sports 3 accidental smears. You name them silently: pride, stupidity, that time you fell asleep mid-weave. Noon heat softens pine resin in your repair jar. The scent drags up a memory, grandma rubbing your blisters with bee balm. Pain's just the body weaving itself stronger. You mimic her tutting sound. Crows mock it back. Calluses now cross-hatch your palms, topographic maps of stubbornness. Each ridge aligns with tool handles. Renaissance guilds mandated palm inspections to verify apprenticeship hours. Yours would get you labeled overly enthusiastic or possibly needs supervision. You slip, all jabbing between threads. A fresh bead of blood swells. Before it falls, you blot it on a loose strand. The red-darkened reed braids into the pattern effortlessly. Some 13th century Egyptian kings demanded intentional flaws in sacred baskets, humanity's signature. Your version's got 5. 3 fishermen pass, their wicker traps clattering. One nods at your work. Selling at the solstice fair, you shrug. Unless the crows file an injunction, they laugh. You notice their own baskets lack rogue blood accents. Amateurs. Twilight turns the river bronze. Stiff fingers uncurl your hand, resembles a starfish fossil. Barnacle scars on wharf pilings mirror your skin's new texture. A drunk philosopher once compared basket calluses to knights' sword scars. You prefer thinking of them as moss slow growth through persistent damp. Lamplight reveals 5 completed rows. Each houses its own defect, the thumbprint, the lavender smear, that dent from when a frog startled you. Experts think Viking traders used flawed baskets to smuggle silver, citing aesthetic distractions. Your work could hide a militia. Washing your hands, you notice the water darkens slightly, part sweat, part Loire, part you. Skincare scrolls from Burgundy warned against letting reed splinters fester. Too late. Your fingerprints are now half tattoo. The boldest crow returns, hops closer than ever. It studies your basket's blood marks. For once, no mockery comes. You snap a thread louder than necessary. The bird startles. So does your pride. Night air carries the tang of distant wood smoke, flexing your hands. You feel the pull of new skin tight and reliable. Tomorrow's reeds wait, already whispering to the calluses. Rain hammers the tin roof, 1,000 impatient customers knocking. You pause mid-stitch, letting the din's rhythm sync with your pulse. 17th century basketmakers timed their work to storms, believing thunder kept evil spirits from tangling their reeds. You're just hoping the roof holds. A leak sprouts above your workbench, cold drops kissing your nape. Tilt your head, catch one on your tongue. Medieval guild apprentices drank roof runoff to absorb the sky's patience. Tastes like oxidized metal and bad decisions. Wet reeds surrender, easier to your all their fibers slick with river and rain. Historians still argue whether downpours improved pliability or just hid subpar craftsmanship in soggy displays. You twist a strand tighter, defying both theories. The cat from the docks slinks in dripping on your finished baskets. Bath first, you scold, blotting her paw prints with your sleeve. An 1804 Parisian menu once featured Loire marsh cat stew as a delicacy. She glares, aware of her ancestry. Lightning flashes, freezing your hands mid-stitch in jagged silver. Country folk swore thunderstorms attracted basket-weaving witches seeking new patterns. Your current spiral's crooked enough to qualify. The next boom shakes dust from rafters. Rain intensifies, drowning the scent of pine resin. You switch to mending old traps, their fractures easier to handle wet. Renaissance repair manuals prescribed singing to fractured willow. You attempt a folk tune. The cat leaves. Thunder rolls its vibrations, humming through your tools. You press a warp thread to the floor, feeling the storm's growl in the wood. 19th century meteorologists linked basket workshops to localized rain patterns. Coincidence? Your leaky roof says maybe. 3 fishermen huddle in your doorway, dripping cloaks pooling on the threshold. Shelter, one asks, eyeing your fire. You nod, they smell of wet dog and ambition. Their sodden wicker creels slump like deflated lungs. Steam rises from their clothes, a humid counterpoint to rain's percussion. You offer elderberry wine, they decline. Smart. Barcelona's 1568 drunk weaver's edict banned alcohol near drying racks after 7 sun shelters burned. The boldest fisherman fingers your half-mended trap. Needs more crossweave here. His nail traces a weak spot. You snap the reed you're holding, plunge it into the repair. His friends pretend not to smirk. Raindrops skitter down the window, racing to the sill. You bet against the fattest one, it loses. Bored during sieges, medieval soldiers plated reed shields and wagered on weather. The stakes, usually somebody's boots. Dampness seeps into your bandages, loosening the linen. A fresh bloodstain blooms, rust-colored petals on beige fabric. Apothecary scrolls recommended moldy bread poultices for rain-softened wounds. You'll risk infection over fermented crusts. The fishermen argue about eel migrations, their voices rising with the storm. You counter with a fact about otter pathways. Silence falls. Someone mutters, weirdest dockside trivia since the leech tax rebellion. Hail suddenly peppers the roof, angry marbles from a jealous sky. You shield your basket and progress with your body, instinct older than reason. 1743 Harvest Records list 13 hail-destroyed reed farms. 14, if you count matrimonies. The cat returns, surging into your lap like a soggy comet. Her purr drowns out the fishermen's resumed bickering. Court documents from Tours reveal a 1602 trial where a weaver's cat testified via paw prints, noted as uncooperative. Rainwater pools beneath the door, a creeping vendetta. You shove rags into the gap, buying time. Dutch engineers invented subfloor reed mats for flood control. Yours just mutates into a tepid footbath. The storm breaks, sunlight ambushing the workshop. Fishermen depart, squelching with every step. You wring out your hem wrists, complaining in fresh keys. Meteorology hadn't accounted for your mending pile, doubling as a rain gauge. Blue sky mocks your soaked tunic. The cat shakes herself, sprinkling your face. You flick water back, an old game. A 1491 woodcut shows St. Martha blessing a basketmaker's rain-soaked cloak. Her expression, diplomatic. Wet reeds glisten on your work table, reborn as liquid bronze. You peel apart 2 clinging strands, their protest, a sticky whisper. University types debate whether humidity made Egyptian basket hieroglyphs unreadable. You vote for lazy scribes. Wind tosses last raindrops from the eaves, final applause. The cat chases a mud-spattered butterfly, ruining someone's fresh wings. Trade logs prove Venetian merchants preferred rain-damaged baskets, cheaper to hose off fish guts. Your fingertips prune ridges softened by storm's aftermath. You rub them with beeswax, stinging reminder of waterproofing's price. Somewhere downriver, a new cloud gathers. Somewhere in your lungs, a yawn builds. The tin roof drips a lazy postscript, plink, plink, silence. You catch 3 drops in an empty resin jar, emergency stitching tea. Meteorologists would disapprove. Grandma WOULDV. Eat Chinese letter honey. You sip it cold victory in 16 sour swallows. Damp tools cling to your palms, begging for rest. You lay them crosswise on the bench, a ritual even storms can't rush. Tomorrow's reeds will crack louder. Your hands will remember how to bend. Her shadow falls across your work table before you see her, crooked spine bending, light like a willow. In flood season, you inhale pine resin and rosewater, her ghost's signature scent. 14th century guild records show craftswomen passed tools to granddaughters at monarchy. A puberty rite masked as inheritance. Yours arrived with a splintered awl and 3 walnuts. A reed snaps your thumbnail, bleeding into the fibers. Grandma's chuckle rasps like wheat stalks in wind. Straighter tension, less teeth, she whispers, though scholars still debate whether ancestral voices are memory or madness. You wipe blood on your apron, the stain mirroring her old cough-smudged handkerchief. Her translucent finger points at your warped base. Ash likes a spiral, not a grid. You fight the urge to argue. Renaissance basketmakers once drowned flawed work to return it to the river's grace. Your pride's too brittle for that baptism. The ghost sweeps a hand through your reed pile, stirring dust, motes into constellations. Frankish burial scrolls mention weaving widows who slept in workshop lofts to commune with dead husbands. She'd scoffed at those tailies right before willing her rocking chair to your attic. Your next stitch wobbles, a drunken caterpillar track. The air chills, her disapproval sharp as a frosted blade. I taught you the triple underweave at 7, she mutters. You were actually 8, but correcting phantoms invites month-long hauntings. Memory ambushes you, her knuckles brushing yours as she guided the awl. Folks say our baskets held Joan of Arc's armor. She'd winked. Historians still argue whether the saint's gear used river reeds or Danish oak. You suspect she invented that tale to guilt you into straighter edges. Your bandaged finger catches on a knot, the sting pulling you back. Her ghost flickers, moonlit cobwebs over your shoulder. You swear she's tilting the oil lamp, casting dramatic shadows on your mistakes. A 1630 Marseille play depicted meddlesome craft ghosts rearranging tools. Reviews called it unlikely. The reed splits clean under sudden sure hands. Grandma's sigh lifts the hairs on your neck. There's my girl. Her approval smells like burnt honey and relief. Victorian anthropologists documented basket memory, bodily knowledge, outlasting conscious thought. They never mentioned the heartache of feeling unworthy hands remember. She fades with the oil lamp's gutter, taking the scent of roses with her. You finish the row, each stitch tighter than the last. Before dementia stole her words, she'd hum alpine herding tunes while weaving. Your voice rasps the first verse, a blurred offering. Moonlight carpets the workshop, your spine curves, unknowingly mirroring her final posture. The half-woven basket cradles shadows like air waiting for its story. Dawn's 2 hours off, plenty of time to prove some ghosts wrong. Salt-crusted braids announce her, a girl-shaped backlit by dawn's peach smudge. She hoists a willow creel, its stink of smoked eel overpowering the workshop's pine resin. 17th century Loire bargemen considered 12 the age for independent trade, though few let daughters wield the ledger. Her chin juts at your half-finished traps, a challenge masked as curiosity. Papa says your eel cages rot faster than river foam, she declares. Her voice cracks mid-insult, betraying last summer's pitch. Medieval fishmongers believed eel skin tea cured shyness. You wonder if she brewed a double batch. You flex blistered palms, still tacky with marsh clay. Tell Papa his last batch tasted like mildew and regret. She stiffens, then grins sharp as a garfish spine. The creel thumps onto your bench. Eel strips glisten oil seeping into wood grain. Historians still debate whether river folk used walnut husks or oak gall for smoke curring. This batch reeks of alder, a wood only fools forage during new moons. Her mud-caked toe prods your weakest trap, needs more crossweave here unless you want minnows escaping. 8-year-olds shouldn't diagnose craftsmanship. Yet her eye catches the loose rive you'd ignored. You flick a reed scrap at her, the day I take advice from a tadpole. The retort dies as she unfolds a handkerchief, revealing 3 violet pearls. Freshwater mollusks haven't bred here since the dredging of '89. Your throat tightens, Mama's dowry trinket. She lies smoothly too practiced for a first barter. Renaissance gutter pamphlets warned of child swindlers using stolen nacre. These pearls still sport river silt in their crevices. Sunlight glares between you, a war declared in pauses. You slide a trap forward. She adds 2 eels to her pile. 3 rounds pass, offers parried with counteroffers. A grizzled fisherman once told you haggling, just flirting with math. You finally understand him. She pockets the pearls their absence, leaving phantom weight in your palm. The remaining eel dangles from her fist. For your breakfast, she smirks, knowing full well you'll pickle it as winter rations. Her retreating shadow stretches long across the dock. You count the traps she's claimed, 7, though you'd only meant to part with 5. The Loire whispers secrets to its children. This one's learned too well. Twilight paints the river violet, its surface swallowing the sun's last coins. Your basket ribs drink the light, their willow bones glowing sacramental purple. 16th century dyers paid fortunes for this shade, Unaware marsh snails secreted similar hues for free. You lick your thumb, smearing indigo across a warped reed. The Loire mimics you, tonguing its banks with bruised reflections. Lanterns blush awake along distant docks, fireflies trapped in paper cages. Your work table shrinks, a raft adrift on creeping shadow. Night blooming Sirius unfurls somewhere, its white petals useless for dye, but pretty as a widow's lie. Historians still argue whether medieval weavers used chamber pots or spring water to fix their colors. You opt for vinegar, its sharpness cutting through the dusk musk. A fish leaps, its splash rippling the lamplight. You count the concentric rings, 18 before stillness returns. Superstitious anglers claim twilight eels taste better, their flesh marinated in stolen sunlight. Your pickled breakfast specimen disagrees, flesh stubborn as cork. Needlegrass sways beneath the table, brushing your ankles like a conspirator. You weave slower now, fingers navigating by memory more than sight. Someone once told you basketmakers built the first hourglasses. The story reeks of tavern logic, but tonight you almost believe it. Cold seeps through your stool, a chill dragged up from the riverbed. Your lamp sputters, wick starving for oil. 3 barges glide past, their hulls pregnant with unripe wine. 16th century tax records show barrel makers outturned kings. The reek of fermenting grapes suggests nothing's changed. Stars prick the sky, their light older than any craft. You snap a frayed reed end, its pop echoing across the water. A frog croaks rebuke from the shallows. Try weaving blindfolded, you mutter, but reach for another lamp anyway. The final knot resists, its hemp sinew greased with your indifference. Silk merchants swore blind weavers produced tighter stitches. You yank hard, the fibers surrendering with a monk's sigh. Moonlight silver plates your completed basket, a ghostly twin to dawn's first creation. River mist rises, dampening your sleeves into lead weights. Your stomach growls, an unspoken treaty with the pickling jar. Somewhere upstream, a child laughs, the bargeman's daughter, perhaps, already resetting her traps. You blow on your lamp, turning its flame into a pulsing orange pupil. Shadows retreat, just enough to see where the next reed bends. The lamp's halo shrinks, its weak glow abandoning rafters for safer corners. You blink at sudden constellations, dozens of silk strands crisscrossing your drying reeds. 16th century weavers called these ghost looms night shifts worked by 8-legged apprentices. A garden spider descends, legs splayed like a cartographer's compass. You steady your breath, her silk quivers, but doesn't break. Cold drafts rifle through the workshop, snagging threads into harp strings. A web near the door thrums, playing creaky lullabies to peeling plaster. Historians still argue whether Parisian silk mills borrowed tension techniques from orb weavers. Your rushes need no such finesse. Their humble arcs strung with river mud and spite. Moonlight betrays a silhouette in the eaves, a funnel web scribbled deliriously across a beam. Your grandmother cursed those, said they brought fevers with their funneled winds. Yet she wove feverfew into every basket handle, just in case you snap a reed too loudly. The spider freezes, then vanishes into its cottony vortex. Dew seeps through the thatch, purling on silk like wasted alms. You catch a droplet on your nail, its curve mimicking a basket's base. Medieval guilds taxed members per spider killed 3 sous per abdomen. Your knuckles ache, remembering the Reeves ledger and its scarlet tallies. A falsehood dangles near your ear, limbs all knees and accusations. Still here, you murmur, though its kind haunted pharaohs, granaries, 5,000 years prior. One scroll from Alexandria whispers of spiders weaving fate itself. You prefer thinking they're just hungry, like everything else. Your knife grazes a web triggering frantic vibrations across the ceiling. 18th century naturalists wrote of web music, mapped their harmonics like lute tablatures. The disrupted strands now thrum a discordant jig, asymmetrical, urgent. You hum a counter melody, flat notes smothering panic with human noise. Dawn's first glow exposes the night's industry, webs tattered but triumphant. Rivulets of light slide down silk, briefly gilding what's been stolen. A jay shrieks outside, the spiders recoil into their daymares. You dip a reed, start a coil, and wonder whose shadows will claim tonight's rafters. River mud crackles, its usual squelch frozen mid-gurgle. You lurch upright, boots welded to frost-gnawed rushes. The Loire lies strangled, a glass serpent seized mid-writhe. Your breath hangs, a ragged ghost, inspecting its own bones. 5 centuries back workers would have been slicing ice blocks, here hoarding winter's teeth for summer feasts. You test the crust. It groans like a stepped-on harp. 3 cracks spider outward, their paths mimicking the Thames. Ancient frost fares, reeds stand petrified, still curved from yesterday's weaving. Their snapped songs live as splinters now, each serrated edge recounting warmer winds. Your all slips, skating across ice into a silt tomb. 17 curses later you're kneeling in a patch of defiant slush. Something winks beneath the surface, a silver eel suspended mid-wriggle. Its gills flutter, trapped in a liquid locket. Medieval monks swore frozen lampreys cured gout, though yours seems better suited as an ice pick. Fingers stiffen, sausages sheathed in salt-stiff wool. You fumble for the willow bundle, its fibers crunching like stale bread. Historians still argue whether Viking traders carried frost-preserved baskets to Newfoundland. Right now, you trade all hypothetical longships for a steaming mug of anything. The moon escapes cloud cover, its light sharp enough to flay shadows. Ice shifts, releasing trapped bubbles that rise like drowned fireflies. 3 generations back, your great uncle harvested these reeds during the year without summer. His journals mentioned ash-dark snow, crop dust from a volcano's tantrum. Dawn arrives grudgingly, pale and wheezing. You snap a stalk, its core weeps amber sap. The fracture line mirrors Catherine de' Medici's parquet, floors that French obsession with geometric cruelty. A mallard lands, skids 10 feet, and glares at the stolen skating rink. Its squawk sparks an avalanche of crackles, the river snarling through frozen lips. You pocket a shard of ice, its edges already softening into surrender. By noon, the sun betrays its thaw. Reeds sag, their crystalline armor reduced to soggy mail. You salvage what remains, weaving splinters into a basket's ribs. Each defect becomes a witness, knotted proof of winter's fleeting grasp. A shadow pools at your feet cool and liquid despite noon's glare. You turn blinking at a figure backlit by the Loire's glare. His palm smears shore mud across flat stone, fingertips carving channels that glisten. St. Malo to Tours, he rasps, naming villages like old lovers. The map breathes, its inlets blooming as clay dries tawny. You recognize the French meridian line's ghost, that failed rival to Greenwich. 1792 scholars sweated over this longitude, their brass tools now rusting in attic graves. His thumbnail etches a route through vineyards, each zigzag reeking of last night's rain. He wants your winnowing basket, the one with celandine stalks woven through its ribs. You counter with a story instead, how Burgundian monks once flavored communion wafers with river clay. His laugh sounds like gravel down a chute. A trades struck fiber for coordinates scribbled in silt. Pebbles click as he arranges them, 7 forming the plow's distorted cousin. Third stars a lyre, he mutters, tossing a shale shard westward. 17th century astronomers debated that flicker. Some claimed it was Louis XIV's soul, checking his wig powder. You trace the pattern, realizing it mirrors the cracks in your workshop's north wall. He departs, leaving eel tracks across the hardening mud. Nightfall finds you squinting at prickling skies, the basket already forgetting your hands. Historians still argue whether medieval star charts guided pilgrims or bored shepherds. Your fingers remember the stranger's map, its clay rivers now cracking under relentless stars. Sunrise licks warped oak planks, your workbench buckling like a drunkard's spine. These dog days got their name from Roman stargazers. They thought serious. Glare made crops wilt and tempers snap. You press a palm to swollen wood. It groans like a dowager rising from her bath. The Loire shriveled to a sulking ribbon, its banks crackling with last night's abandoned snail shells. 3 buckets of river water await your brewing standoff against summer's arrogance. The first pour hits steaming timber, hissing like a cat dropped in snow. 1783 records from Dijon mention coopers using children's urine to soften stubborn staves, a fact best forgotten when tasting Burgundy's barrels. Steam curls into your nostrils, a humid insult mocking your salt-stained shirt. Old oak fights your grip, its fibers snarled from years of pretending to be floorboards. You straddle the board, knees pressing down, as if gentling a wild mare. Historians still argue whether Roman aqueduct builders spiked their mortar with ox blood or grape must. Your solution's simpler, sheer spite, and a mallet carved from pearwood. Something pops, a splinter jabs your inner thigh. You curse using vocabulary that make a Napoleonic grenadier blush. The plank relents, its curve now echoing the Loire's drought-starved bends. In Avignon, their racing wheelbarrows padded with stolen goose feathers, a fact muttered by yesterday's fishmonger. Your own wheels turn slower, each soaked stave requiring 10 breaths of pressure. Noon brings horseflies drunk on the stink of wet bark. You smear your neck with crushed mint, the same trick Venetian gondoliers used to mask canal stench. A warped shutter crashes down, its iron hinge melting through roof thatch like butter. The scorched patch resembles Pope Clement VII's profile, an accidental heresy you'll never unsee. By tercera light, 6 planks surrender to graceful arcs. You bind them with willow bark, green tendrils bleeding chlorophyll across the pale wood. Someone's baking sourdough across the river, the smell taunting your empty stomach. You hum a Marseille sea chanty altered to insult Oak's mother. 3 swallows dive bomb your water buckets, their shrieks shrill as a Parisian fishwife. Toss them a weevil-infested acorn, a peace offering they peck into submission. The 9th plank snaps, its crack echoing the sound of your last patience. 17 splinters later, it's bent into something resembling compliance. Twilight arrives with a breeze that smells of burning lavender. 9 curved ribs now form the basket's skeleton, each a prisoner of geometry and spite. You douse Chinese letter embers of sunlight, wondering if Pharaoh's tomb builders suffered this same backache. The river exhales a blanket of fog, nature's consolation prize for surviving July. Twilight thickens, the bullfrog's chorus swells like a drunkard's parliament. Their throats pulse globes of sound rippling across scum-coated ponds. You kneel at the water's edge, a supplicant before the muckborn court. Medieval cunning folk once buried frog bones under thresholds to repel fever spectre. Your offering's simpler, a fistful of jellied slugs glistening like bad pearls. The largest bullfrog surfaces, its obsidian eye judging your paltry tribute. A Victorian lady's journal boasts of training a bullfrog to sip Earl Grey, though the sketch looks suspiciously like a toad. You lob a slug, it plops near the patriarch's mossy throne. His bellow shakes droplets from reed tips, a regal tantrum demanding sweeter bribes. Historians still argue whether Toulouse's frog-shaped rainspouts were pious symbols or inside jokes among masons. You counter with honeyed mulberries pilfered from the abbey's orchard, nature's coin for amphibian diplomacy. The chorus dims, rank mouths too busy mashing crimson pulp. Slime coats your knuckles as you skim algae for nest lining. 3 bullfroglets belly flop onto your raft, their speckled backs mimicking river stones. You resist the urge to name them. Allies stay sweeter without sentiment. Moonrise brings a fresh onslaught of croaks, deafening as Marseille's fish market at high tide. Your last handful of slugs flies wide, hitting a heron mid-swallow. The bird's indignant squawk sends frogs diving their loyalty as fickle as April sun. You retreat with empty jars, their glass still patterned with phantom slug trails. Across the water, a lone bullfrog croaks what might be a ceasefire or curse. The mud breathes thick and warm, a living thing beneath your blistered soles. By fourth bell the wetlands hush, but for cricket hymns, your bait traps dangle full, tomorrow's bargaining chips secured. The moon grins through willow branches, a conspirator in this truce of teeth and slime. The moon bloats, its golden mask swelling above skeletal cornstalks. You kneel in thirsty soil, filling baskets with shadows that wear wheat's costume. Butter yellow light soaks through your sleeves, a liar's dye staining calloused fingers. 14th century farmers timed harvests by lunar cycles, believing full moons plumped turnips faster. Your own cabbages stay scrawny, their leaves curled like a miser's fists. Still, you cut them under the glow, letting borrowed brilliance fatten your haul. A Burgundian chronicle claims drunk monks once tried fermenting pumpkins by moonlight, resulting in a vinegar that ate through leather boots. Your knife glints theater bright, carving stems with unnecessary flourish. The cabbages remain unimpressed. Historians still argue whether Roman aqueduct engineers factored lunar tides into their designs or just loved showing off. You stack baskets into leaning towers, their emptiness disguised by elongated shadows. For 3 precarious breaths, it almost resembles abundance. Crickets rasp their opinions as you drag the haul indoors. The moon follows, smearing its gold across your work table like cheap gilt. Woven reeds drink the pale light, each crevice pretending at plumpness. You arrange shriveled carrots into sunburst patterns, an edible illusion for tomorrow's market. By third crow call, the deceit dissolves. Your baskets sag under true daylight, exposing gaps where radiance once pooled. A blackberry stain on your thumb winks, mocking last night's fervor. You bury the worst produce at the bottom, a merchant's sleight of hand learned at 13. Noon finds you bartering, trading moon-blessed beans to a miller's superstitious wife. She fingers the pods, reverently ignoring their moth-eaten undersides. Copper coins clink into your palm, their warmth outshining any harvest glow. Sunset brings the lie's encore. Golden fingers stroke your empty fields, gilding dust into dream wheat. You begin the harvest dance anew. The oven's dying breath puffs flour dust into constellations as he stumbles in a flower ghost reeking of burnt rye and bad decisions. His apron sags, one strap dangling like a hanged man. Cradle, he slurs, spittle gluing crumbs to his beard. For my finest loaf's christening, you arch a brow, knife hovering over half-spoiled willow. Medieval bakers kept sourdough starters alive for decades. Some passed through wills like family jewels. This fool's starter died last winter, judging by his vinegar-edged curses. He slaps a wobbling sourdough blob onto your work table. It deflates, a yeasty sigh misting the air. Your nose wrinkles at the stench of overproofed failure. 13th century French bakers shaped loaves like swaddled infants for Saint Honor's procession, feeding them to pigs if rains came. You doubt even hogs would touch this dough. Make it, hic, sacred. His finger jabs, narrowly missing your all. Angelic curves, divine spirals. Historians still argue whether spiral-shaped breads warded off evil or just helped peasants tear equal shares. You twirl a reed, crafting Fibonacci twists tight enough to strangle hope. The baker sways, crooning a lullaby to his dough, as if volume could leaven it. Lamplight gilds his trembling hands. You recognize the nicotine stains, same as the widow's fingers when she traded her copper knot. His kneading techniques all violence, a far cry from the river clay's patient give. Rush baskets line the walls, their ribbed bellies mocking his limp creation. You weave faster, embedding willow spikes between sweetgrass. Let him try lifting his holy loaf from this thorned nest. He collapses onto your stool, its legs screeching protest. She left me, he mumbles into the dough. Took the brick oven, the millstone. You snap a strand with your teeth. 23 years passed. A drought-starved mob shattered Paris. First public ovens. Their fury left bakers swinging from charred rafters. This one's lucky to mourn only his marriage. Dawn seeps through cracked shutters. The baker snores, forehead glued to the work table by dried starter. Your cradle sits finished, a geometric cage masquerading as piety. Its sharp angles devour shadows, an inverse halo. You place his dough inside, watching the sour mass ooze between willow teeth. The first sunrise rays strike it, and the loaf begins to weep. The dough's weeping slows as dawn bleeds into the river mist, its tears congealing into amber regrets. You leave the baker snoring his cradle basket, already warping under the dough's acidic breath. Night returns, and with it the scrape of talons on your thatched roof. Moonlight reveals the intruder, a barn owl perched on your half-woven fish trap. Its left wing droops, a single flight feather snagged in the willow latticework. You freeze, aware that medieval bishops declared owls Satan's scribes. But their feathers once lined papal inkwells, all the same. The bird hisses, a sound like steam escaping a burial urn. Its plumage glows silver blue, the same hue as Cleopatra's ceremonial eye powder. You approach slow, palms greasy, with pine resin from earlier repairs. 19th century milliners slaughtered 100,000 owls weekly for ladies' hats, a fact that tightens your fingers into fists. Easy now, you murmur, though you know the Loire's owls recognize no human tongue. The trapped feather trembles, its barbs hooked like 100 tiny scythes. You recall a traveling scholar claiming certain monasteries used owl quills to transcribe forbidden texts, their silent flight inspiring quieter heresies. Your awl hovers, its tip catching the moon. Historians still argue whether basket-woven feathers served as folkloric protection or merely caught on as decorative accidents. The owl lunges, but the snagged anchor holds fast. You spot crimson threading its plumage, a vole's last testament smeared across divine plumage. One twist of the wrist, the willow coil unravels just enough. The feather slips free, its sudden release leaving your palm stinging. The owl cartwheels into darkness, a phantom swallowed by the river's breath. Below your table, the freed plume spins, its hollow shaft pooling moonlight into a liquid gleam. You pocket it, thinking of Charlemagne's edict banning owl hunting during harvest moons. His scribes left no reason why just a smeared wax seal and 3 owl talons pressed into parchment. The fish trap lies ruined, but tomorrow's reeds will forgive fresh beginnings. A hoot echoes downstream, half mocking, half grateful. You whisper thanks to the vanished shadow, knowing full well it neither hears nor cares. Some debts settle best as midnight's fleeting geometries, a feather for a vow, a mended wing for stories, yet unwoven. Crimson streaks the eastern sky, a butcher's apron unfurling over the Loire. Your morning coffee steams, mocking the mist, still clinging to tangled reeds. The river growls, last night's storm still flexing its bloated muscles. You count tools on your workbench, 3 chisels, 1 hammer, the bone all from gone. The steel punch, gifted by grandfather, vanished. Its absence yawns wider than the river itself. You scan mud, finding only frog spawn and splintered willow. A glint downstream snags your eye, the punch's handle protruding from silt like a drowning man's wrist. The current tugs your boots as you wade in. Cold leaches up your thighs, a thief's fingers stealing warmth. 1 step, 2, your toes brush the tool's iron snout. Historians still argue whether riverbeds hoard treasures as offerings or simply steal whatever they fancy. Your grasping hand freezes the silt beneath you collapses. Metal screams as the punch vanishes, swallowed whole. The Loire belches bubbles green and smug. You stumble back, plucking leeches from your calves. Survival Rule 23. Never trust a river that outlives kingdoms. Back at the workshop, rage threads through your fingers. You kick an oak stump, which retaliates by bruising your heel. The oldest basket mold grins from its shelf, empty as your toolbox. Your gaze snags on the stag skull mounted outside, a decade-old kill gathering moss. Deer bone. Neolithic hunters carved spearprints from antler tines, a fact your hands recall before your mind does. The bone all winks from its corner, suddenly looking less like a tool and more like an audition. You pry the skull from its nails, weevils scattering like guilty thoughts. Antler meats chisel your strikes, echoing down the valley. Bone dust coats your tongue, chalky betrayal. Cartilage splits with a wet crack, the sound of a tree giving up in winter. 3 hours pass, or maybe 7. The river's laughter fades with each bone shard you carve. Your new awl emerges, crooked but vicious. Its edge glints milk-white under swollen clouds. You stab the oak stump, watching splinters fly. Survival Rule 46. Vengeance tastes best served splintery. Twilight finds you etching willow bands, each jab a love letter to stubbornness. The awl's rhythm matches your pulse, ancient and unrelenting. A fish leaps downstream, its scales catching the last red light. You imagine your stolen tools nestled in some watery grave, rusting alongside Roman pilums and Gaulish armor. Dinner's a meager broth, but you sip it slow. The stag's skull watches from the floor, its hollow sockets judging your progress. What? You snap, spoon hovering midair. A breeze rattles its antlers, yes. Even death enjoys a good joke. Nightfall brings owl cries, or maybe loons. You don't check. The bone all rests on your pillow, a warrior awaiting dawn. Somewhere downstream, the Loire whispers new lies to the moon. You close your eyes, dreaming of riverbeds coughing up their plunder, one splintered tool at a time. Dawn leaks through your window, pale as watered milk, the bone all still warm from your fist, its edge nicked from midnight carving. River mud cakes your soles. You tracked last night's frustration indoors. By the threshold, something glints where yesterday held only dirt. A ceramic jar tilts, its belly crusted with azure scales. Cobalt oxide, Renaissance painters sold their souls for this blue. Your thumb rubs the rim, centuries of pigment cracking under calluses. Historians still argue whether artisans abandoned such jars for cost or fear of ruining perfect hues. The lid resists, sealed by time's stubborn kiss. You pry with the all-bone scraping clay. Inside, dried pigment glows like captured twilight. 18th century Parisian ateliers called it sky in a crucible, though this sample's cruder. River fish dart outside, their silver backs flashing in unison. Legend claims Loire trout nip at blue-painted boats, mistaking them for inverted heavens. You dip a reed into the powder, stirring it with river water. The mixture blackens at first, then blooms into midnight's richest tone. Survival Rule 94. Always trust colors that transform under pressure. Your brush hesitates. What deserves such blue? The workshop walls mock you with their peeling ochre. A heron's cry slices the air outside. The river winks knowingly. You paint the underside of a reed basket, patterns only minnows will glimpse. The pigment clings thick, each stroke a weighty secret. 16th century laws restricted cobalt to royal workshops, but smugglers traded it in sheep bladders. Your jar's maker left no mark, just a thumbprint healed over by time. You wonder if they drowned, or simply grew tired of beauty's burden. Sun climbs, your hidden masterpiece dries in shadow. Tomorrow's eel traps will wear common hemp brown, but beneath their bellies, a constellation of stolen sky awaits. The jar's leftover powder whispers promises, but you cork it tight. Survival Rule 18. Save some magic for leaner days. The Loire licks its banks, already plotting new thefts. You tuck the jar beneath floorboards, right where the stag's skull grins. Let future archaeologists puzzle over this blue, your private joke, with eternity. Pine resin bubbles, its amber glare mocking your bandaged hands. Winter stole the river's voice first, then came for your skin. The cracks map your knuckles, red rivers converging at broken deltas. You press a thumb to sappy warmth, resenting how it soothes. Record keeps from Bruges mention 15th century glove makers, using squirrel fat for chapped hands. You'd sooner dip in fire. Those bushy-tailed thieves still raid your reed stalks. The resin hisses, dripping over linen strips meant to bind your wounds. Survival Rule 37. Never trust remedies that smell like candy. A bandage unfurls, stiff as parchment. Beneath it, your pinky weeps crimson into dried pine tears. Some claim Napoleon's chefs used resin to seal meat pies, calling it nature's wax. You doubt emperors tasted blood in their pastry glue. Workbench frost lingers despite the hearth. You're too stubborn to waste fuel. The awl handle feels foreign, its familiar grooves muted by cloth. Across the Loire, a fox yips at icebound reeds. They'll snap clean tomorrow, their marrow sacrificed to glassy water. Medieval beekeepers whisper cursed greedy resin harvesters, saying oozing trees marked greedy men. You carve a fresh splint, ash wood resisting the knife. Your breath hangs, a ghost judging every clumsy stroke. Survival Rule 55. Splints outlive the hands they mend. An old scar itches where the stag's antler grazed you last spring. You scratch through bandages, irritation blooming bright and familiar. 16th century surgeons believed wounds healed faster if patients sang during treatment. The only tune you muster hums through clenched teeth. Resin hardens on the work table, amber puddles trapping stray reed fibers. You peel one free, its threads glinting like fossilized hair. Some say Roman engineers mixed resin with volcanic sand to waterproof ships. You smear a test patch on a basket's ribs. Let Neptune rage. The hearth coughs, its embers winking conspiratorially. You feed it split willow, praying for warmth without flames. Frost creeps under the door, white claws grasping at your heels. Survival Rule 82. Winter wins if you stare too long. Across the room, the stag's skull watches from its shadowed perch. Sap dries in its empty socket, a makeshift glass eye. Archaeologists would drool over such a find if they ignored your bloodstains. Your laugh rasps dry as the resin-stiffened bandages. Heat finally surges, the fire's breath kissing your wounded hands. Pain flares, then retreats, outmaneuvered by sudden sweat on your neck. Some alchemist's journal claims human pain radiates violet, though you've never seen it. The Loire growls under ice, its hunger trapped beneath the surface. You unwrap a finger, probing the crack's jagged edge. Blood beads fresh pine scent sharpening the sting. 18th century ladies used walnut dye to disguise scars, but vanity's luxury died with summer. The bandage soaks in resin again, your version of a silk glove. Snow muffles the world. Even the crows hush their critique. Needle pricks your palm, a loose thread pulled too tight. Historians still argue whether Viking sailors sewed wounds with resin-coated thread, or just liked the antiseptic smell. You knot linen with teeth, tasting mortality's bland tang. By midnight, your hands resemble mumia, wrappings from Cairo's dusty tombs. The fire's dead, you'll pay for that come dawn. Moonlight turns resin to liquid silver on the workbench. Survival Rule 1. Every mended thing waits to break again. Ice cracks outside, a boom like splitting timber. You rise, bandages creaking, and glimpse the Loire's black water gulping moonlight. Tomorrow's reeds will snap easier, and so will your joints. The stag's resin eye glints, a frozen wink from the shadows. Blood pools under a fingernail dark as the cobalt jar beneath your feet. You press it to cold clay, leaving a smudged oath. Let future diggers wonder if this stain was sacrament or surrender. Dawn's still hours off, but the river's already rehearsing its spring dirge. Sand's grit finds your teeth, even in sleep. Blinding sun replaces moonlight, a white-hot blade peeling away centuries. Your blistered hands now grip palm ribs, but the reeds whisper hieratic script. The Nile's gone salt, its corpse baking under a cobalt bowl of sky. Workers haul papyrus bundles, their backs glistening with sweat and resin. You recognize the pyramid's shadow, though history claims Cheops. Builders used rope, not baskets. A foreman barks, his voice shredding the air like reed knives. Survival Rule 12,000. Royal vanity stinks worse than embalming vats. Your fingers weave stems, each twist memorializing a dead pharaoh's whim. The overseer counts knots, tallying your obedience in taut hemp strings. Scholars recently carbon dated basket fragments in Khufu's solar boat, their weave identical to modern Nubian techniques. You plait faster, knowing your bones won't merit such curiosity. A child slips you a date soaked in palm wine, sweetness meant to dull the lash. Their hands mimic your motions, left, right, under, left, right, under. Predynastic burials reveal baskets cradling stillborn infants, woven with milkweed instead of reeds. You pocket the pit future ammunition against jackals or gods. Wind shrieks through half-built tombs, a chorus of stone throats. Sand etches patterns on your forearm, matching the checkered lid taking shape. Certain fringe Egyptologists swear they've decoded spell 319 as basket weaving instructions from Isis. You snort, grit lodging in your nasal passages like a spiteful blessing. The overseer's whip cracks, your shoulder blooms fire. Blood dots the weaving, perfect crimson beads soaking into sedge. Later, much later, conservators will debate whether these stains represent ritual marks or mundane suffering. You hiss a curse, its vowels shaped by a Loire your DNA hasn't met yet. A sandstorm swallows the worksite, the world reduced to ochre teeth grinding stone. Workers huddle under half-finished sarcophagi, their prayers competing with shrieking air. You clutch your half-made basket, a child's game against annihilation. Historians still argue whether desert winds inspired spiral motifs or just eroded sanity. Through the storm's howl, a woman's voice hums the same scale your grandmother crooned. Her fingers dart like swallows, binding reeds with strips of her own hair. 7th century Coptic texts mention ascetic weavers incorporating bodily relics into holy baskets. You count her gray strands, 37, 38, 39. Darkness falls, not night, but the weight of limestone blocks above. The air tastes of crushed cumin and terror. Your basket holds only dust now, its purpose as forgotten as your name. Survival rule -3. Tombs outlive their builders by design. The child from earlier tugs your sleeve, their eyes reflecting twin crescent moons. They press a faience amulet into your palm, a basket topped with a scarab. Dreams within dreams, you think before the sand sucks you downward. You wake choking, Loire reeds stabbing your clenched fists. Dawn stains the workshop floor, pale pink, bleeding through frost. Blink, breathe. The stag skull's resin eye holds a fleck of desert grit. Fingers uncurl, revealing phantom blisters shaped like cartouches. Your real cuts throb, but differently. 18th century explorers boiled mummy wrappings into paint pigment, calling the shade eternal brown. You scrub your palms on dew-damp grass, erasing echoes of sun-bleached slavery. The river mutters, its thawing tongue lapping at the bank. A heron spears a fish, ancestral dagger made flesh. You split fresh reeds, their green cores smelling faintly of papyrus rhizomes. Survival rule infinity. Water remembers what stone carvings deny. Coffee boils over its bitter steam, mimicking desert mirages. You sip from a chipped bowl vessel of 1,000 mornings. Some claim Napoleon's troops looted a sorcerer's basket from Giza, lost near Marengo amid musket smoke. The warmth in your gut says fabrications make decent kindling. A splinter finds your thumb, metal all glinting in approval. Blood wells thicker than in the dream, a darker red. 19th century phrenologists measured basket weavers' skulls to prove manual intelligence stunted moral growth. You let the droplet fall, one more stain for future thesis papers. Sun climbs, its glare softened by Loire mist. Blistered fingers bend, ache, bend again. Behind each stroke, ghost hands from drowned centuries mirror your progress. Survival rule 0. Someone always wove before you. Someone always will after. Ice cracks downstream, a percussive knock from winter's retreating back. You hum the sandstorm melody, its notes warped by reed-scarred lips. The stag's skull tilts, as if recalling a joke only deserts understand. Work continues, the river breathes. Somewhere, a child's laugh pierces time's gauzy veil. Frost's last gasp hisses through willow roots, a dying serpent beneath your boots. The Loire bulges, its thaw blood carrying carcasses of winter's feast. You wade into the silt soup knees, protesting as cold gnaws through wool. Survival Rule Spring Edition. Every gift's a debt with compound interest. Sodden reeds stick to your arms like drowned hair. A muskrat's skull grins up, its teeth clutching a Roman coin green with rot. 9th century basket linings near Tours hid Frankish silver. But this denarius's too pitted to trade. You pocket it anyway, charity for whatever god handles lost loot. Mud suckles your ankles, each step a syllabic curse. The river coughs up a trunk limb worn smooth as a king's scepter. Medieval weavers used such driftwood for frame ribs, though most prefer kiln-dried ash now. You heft the waterlogged timber, its weight whispering of cataracts and shipwrecks. Sunlight glints on something glassy, a bottleneck crusted with algae. Inside rolls a parchment scrap. Avoid the Bishop's Toll Road. 1890s pearl divers swore river muck, preserved messages better than waxed cedar. You let the current reclaim this gossip, histories already overweight with warnings. Your sack swells with mossy hordes, a treasure of mildewed fibers. Blister beetles swarm a rotting perch, their iridescent shells crunching underfoot. Renaissance dyers paid handsomely for these bugs' blood-blue secretions, until Mexican cochineal flooded the market. You scoot sideways, your heels still grinding capitalism into the mire. The bank collapses, a slurping yawn of clay and regret. Exposed roots dangle like vascular lace, revealing an iron bloom the size of a hog's skull. 14th century bog iron built Parisian gutters. But this lump's too sulphurous for reforging. You lob it downstream, savoring the vulgar splash. Fingers prune skin, puckering into topographic maps of regret. A pike flashes silver, its gills filtering last night's hallucinations. Historians still argue whether Viking fish traps inspired basket weirs, or if hunger just makes great minds converge. You pluck a leech from your wrist, its engorged body mimicking a pregnant comma. Dusk comes early, smuggled in by rain clouds. You boil the day's haul in a copper vat, the stench of wet history steaming your face. 1820s miasma theory crowds the room, ridiculed, but right about rotting reeds choking lungs. Survival tip: humming obscene ballads scares away both germs and prudes. The widow Melanchon hobbles in her cane, ticking time against flagstones. She eyes your blisters, nods approval at their angry sheen. Spring licks its cubs raw. She croaks, dropping a salve jar scented with grave dirt. Postpartum basket cradles from her village, allegedly stopped infant colic, or just scared mothers into silence. You dream of river teeth. They gleam geometric and endless, their cusps straining toward a moon that's all scar tissue. Merovingian queens supposedly wove their own funeral biers, though their skeletons show no callous patterns. Survival rule cancelled. No one chooses which dreams chew them alive. Dawn finds you picking alder twigs from your hair. The vats cooled into a mucilage swamp reeds, floating like pickled nerves. You skim the scum, each scoop a Rorschach test of overpriced therapy sessions. 10th century Breton monks wrote psalms in algae ink. Too bad their god preferred silence. A kingfisher slams into the workshop window, stunned, but regal in its indignation. You cradle iridescence, feeling its heartbeat frantic as loom shuttles. Wrong kind of weaver. You murmur, the joke landing as flat as Dutch pancakes. Its wings beat a retreat, leaving one cobalt feather mocking your human clumsiness. Blisters burst during the noon splice, their amber ooze marrying reed sap. Victorian factories once hired puss wipers for ergonomic studies, until union labels outlawed poetry in job titles. You wrap your hand in dock leaves, nature's bandage, and passive-aggressive critique of modern medicine. The river sighs, its banks now scrubbed raw and glistening. Somewhere downstream, your iron lump reshapes a new myth. You braid, boil, braid again, while spring's false generosity churns toward summer's ledger. Survival rule rewritten. All baskets are coffins for the hours you'll never cradle. Rain drums the thatch, 1,000 nervous fingers rehearsing excuses. Your oiling willow ribs when the door creaks, no knock. Just the widow's moth-eaten shawl breaching the threshold. Her eyes dart like minnows, checking corners for sons who track her movements like tax collectors. Survival tip, rebellion smells of camphor and stale lavender. She extends a palm, calluses silvery as fish scales. The copper coin bites your skin, its edges filed sharp enough to draw blood. 13th century, widows forfeited dowries to male heirs. But this scratched disc declares war on primogeniture. You spin it, spotting Byzantine crosses eaten by grime. Rats ate my spice box. She lies, her voice steady as a gallows rope. The basket's base waits, half finished and hungry. You split a reed with your thumbnail, its fibers splaying like a priest's blessing. Medieval French convents hid illicit letters in weave gaps, though none admit it over vespers. Her knuckle taps the third knot from the east rim, a code known only to women who outlive their usefulness. Flax thread shrieks through the aul's eye, protesting its role as conspirator. You stitch the coin into the knot's belly, wrapping it in lamb's wool to mute betrayal's clink. Some say goose grease silenced Roman sling bullets, but you trust lanolin's sticky hush. The widow exhales, a sound like hope escaping a crypt. Her fingers brush the concealed bulge. Sew a thistle charm above it, she insists, pulling a desiccated flower from her sleeve. Botanists still debate whether Gallic basket weavers used plants as anti-theft wards, or just enjoyed pricking nosy men. You comply, embedding prickles beneath a decorative chevron. Hooves clatter outside, too rhythmic for drunken farmhands. She freezes, a hare sensing the kestrel's shadow. Your shuttle flies faster, weaving truth into pattern. The final knot cinches as bootsteps splinter the rain's Morse code. Historians argue whether these coiled vaults held rebellion or rationed grief. You only know the weight of copper in damp hands. She grasps the basket, its handle gaping like a mute accomplice. For onions, she announces too loud, eyeing the door where her eldest looms, sword hand flexing. You nod, crafting innocence from river reeds and practiced shrugs. His gaze lingers on the thistle motif, then flicks away, bored by feminine frippery. The widow departs, a ghost smuggling daylight in her skirts. You sweep clipped threads into the fire, their smoke curling like unanswered questions. Charlemagne's census recorded 17 women-owned basket shops near Orleans. But parchment burns faster than memory. Outside, the Loire swallows another blood-rouged sunset, its current whispering of drowned secrets and buxom lies. Your blade nicks a thumb, copper meeting copper in a sly wink. You suck the wound, tasting centuries of silent victories. The workshop darkens, but the hidden knot pulses, a heart in a world of bones. Survival rule proven, some cages are built to hold freedom. The neighbors' shouts pierce your workshop walls, two men bellowing over silt deposits left by spring floods. You press the awl deeper into soaked willow. Their fury becomes just another rhythm to counter. Medieval farmers marked boundaries with oath stones blessed by priests, though these fools seem to prefer volume over sacraments. That eel traps on my shore, roars Jacques, his voice cracking like over-dried reed. Pierre retorts with a slap of wet rope against mud, an aquatic whip-crack declaration of war. Survival tip: never trust a man who argues while knee-deep in leeches. Your shuttle clacks triple time, a percussive assault on their pettiness. They've forgotten how last autumn you wove reed markers after floods erased all borders. Botanists found 9th century boundary treaties braided into hedge rows. Men will scribe claims on anything that holds still. Jacques invokes his grandfather's fishing rights. Pierre counters with a soggy property deed from 1312. A clod of riverbank arcs through your open window, rupturing a cobweb's delicate symphony. You spare one glance. The missile lies sprouting marsh marigolds like a hairy green grenade. Historians still argue whether border feuds were strategic resource grabs or just rural theater for starved audiences. Their boots suck at the mud, a grotesque kiss sound. You dunk an armload of rushes, water sluicing away pride, and silt in equal measure. 14th century litigants once settled disputes via eelskin measuring cords, which explains Pierre's sudden interest in Jacques Belt. Thief, pig-descended weasel, cuckold of a mudsnail, the insults grow aquatic, nature's fault line claiming another friendship. You hum a shanty about drowned villages, its dirge cadence syncing with your pounding mallet. Loire fishermen swear thunderstorms carry old quarrels in their rain. Today's drizzle tastes of pickled grudges. A bullfrog croaks from your water bucket, impartial judge in this swampy courtroom. Your blade nicks a reed, its split revealing crimson fibers like encapsulated rage. 20 generations have died debating this river bend, Yet her currents still erase every final boundary. Their wives arrive, clucking like hens, circling a fox. Marie hurls a turnip at Jack, head-align counters, with a leak aimed at Pierre's crotch. A fringe theory claims medieval veggie battles prevented actual bloodshed. The turnip's soggy thud against your doorframe lends credence. Thread singes your palm, a distraction burned into skin. You knot it off, anger transmuted into tension that'll outlast both men's brittle bones. Charred ash mixes with reed sap, your accidental ink for drafting truces no one will read. Darkness falls their voices, hoarsening into growls. You light 2 lanterns, not for their benefit, but yours. Shadows elongate the fighters, turning squabbling farmers into puppet show giants. The bullfrog belches approval as Pierre's hat floats downstream, a sodden surrender flag. Midnight drizzle arrives, washing their resolve thinner than weak ale. They retreat, muttering scraps of threats to reconvene at dawn. Your last weave pattern mirrors the river's disdain, serpentine coils devouring straight lines. Alone again, you dunk your face in the rain barrel. Enlightenment floats there between drowned mosquitoes, a truth as old as the first property dispute. Survival rule verified. Men will shout themselves blue over mud, while women braid futures from what the river discards. Morning brings a silk-clad vulture, picking through your workshop's bones, his perfumed sleeves flapping like surrender flags. Charming, he trills, fingering a sturgeon trap, as if it's a peasant's crown jewel. Merchants flocked here when the Loire was France's medieval Amazon, though this one's grin suggests more pirate than purveyor. He admires your oak-reinforced creels, but keeps glancing downstream where lacquered furniture glints beneath a rival's awning. Quaint work, he murmurs, lingering on quaint like it's a terminal diagnosis. Survival tip: when a man says quaint, he's already carved 20% off your price. Your blade shaves a reed, exposing pale fibers, untouched by river stain. Harvested during last waning moon, you lie knowing merchants adore moonstruck provenance. 13th century ledgers reveal traders paid extra for lunar timber, all while pissing under the same nocturnal glow. He thrusts a chubby finger at your sturgeon basket. How much for this artifact? 3 silver sous. His laugh jiggles a ruby pendant, probably bought with pilfered wheat funds. I'll grant you 8 deniers. 3 sous, 12 deniers, final offer. You spit into the fire, saliva hissing like a tortured eel. Funny, your purse looks 3 sous heavy from here. He freezes, hand drifting toward his money belt. Historians still argue whether haggling was medieval performance art or just sucker punching with extra steps. A wave of bergamot hits as he leans closer. 20 deniers, and my discretion about that unlicensed fishing weir. You scratch your neck, letting him glimpse the bailiff's brass token under your collar. His smile curdles, a priceless reaction. 3 sous, or teach your wife to weave her own dowry. He slaps coins down, overpaying in clipped Portuguese silver. You toss in a cracked dung fork as bonus, knowing he'll blame Lisbon for the defect. Fringe archives mention rogue merchants using counterfeit Byzantine weights. But greed's the oldest counterfeiter. As he retreats, you count his coins using the widow's knot method, each twist revealing fresh bite marks. Come back when your taste matures. You call. He flips a vulgar gesture crude as a Visigoth's graffiti. Sunset ignites the river, transforming his embroidered cloak into a burning barn. You pocket the silver and the satisfaction, survival rule proven. A leaned reed bends, but a baited merchant always snaps. Bullfrogs chorus their approval, a bass line to your shuttling song. Somewhere downstream, your 3 sous clink beside gilded trash, while the Loire keeps rolling pauper and prince alike toward the sea. Your knife peels back birch bark sticky and pale as a river eel's belly. 7 years old, you failed this, the crude boat drowning under pebbles, meant as cargo. Now your fingers crease damp strips, engineering redemption for that child, still sulking in your marrow. Medieval kids floated walnut shells with candle wax sails, but yours wears a proper prow carved like a pike's jaw. A wad of beeswax anchors the mast, stolen from that Berger's hive last midsummer. Historians still argue whether peasant children played or just rehearsed adult labor in miniature. The first test launch wobbles, currents mocking your overbite of concentration. You weight the hull with a snail shell, nature's perfect cargo hold. Barbarian kings once sent birch bark letters downriver. But your message is simpler. Float, damn you. It does, gliding past the rock that martyred its predecessor. A minnow investigates, darting through the crisscross shadows of your latticework. You hum the tune grandmother sang while mending nets, vowels warped by her 3 missing teeth. Noon sun warms the resin oozing from your splice points. 6th century, Frankish brats traded bark boats for arrowheads, but you'll burn this one at sunset. Some ghosts need feeding, others need a proper Viking funeral. Your thumbnail etches a tiny sickle moon into the stern, an inside joke with the river. 9-year-old, you would have added oak gall ink dragons and wept when they blurred. Currents nudge the craft toward a duckweed patch, its own private Sargasso Sea. A kingfisher's dive sprays the boat, baptizing it with enough luck to reach the mill pond. You salute its progress, 3 fingers raised like a disgraced admiral. Childish, maybe. But Charlemagne kept a fleet of walnut warships in his bathtub, allegedly. Twilight stains the water wine dark. Your little voyager vanishes around the bend, bearing its shell, and your shrugged-off shame. Survival secret: never let childhood drown completely. Just ballast it with better craftsmanship. The Loire licks salt from your ankles, old conspirator, to this silent victory. Somewhere downstream, a soggy snail climbs ashore, and your 9-year-old ghost stops holding its breath. The villagers' paper lanterns bob overhead. Silk-wrapped lies glowing butter yellow. You knot another rush torch to its cedar post, your smoke signals drowning their pretty flames. 17th century French festivals used walnut oil lamps, till some drunk duke burned his wig and banned them. A child points at your crackling reeds. Was yours so scratchy looking? You snap a burr from the stalk. Same reason your shoes ain't made of sugar. Their mother hustles them away, clutching a lantern shaped like a swan's inflated ego. Historians still argue whether medieval light festivals began as theft deterrents or just excuses to stay up past curfew. Your blisters hum against the roughened shafts. Across the river, a paper peacock lantern sags, its rice paper tail drooping into a sigh. You mutter a roan bargeman's curse, unprintable, but roughly translating to efficiency over elegance. Girls parade past with floating lanterns, votive candles warping their bamboo frames. One winks as her lotus-shaped light kisses the water. Buy a real craft, she teases, tossing a coin that plinks into the mud. You pocket it anyway, future nails won't hammer themselves. The torches spit pine resin, each spark a petty counterargument to the lantern's silent snobbery. Your grandmother's voice drifts back, fancy burns out, useful smolders. She'd have hurled hammers at these silken nuisances. A drunk nobleman stumbles into your smoke cloud, brandishing a lantern painted with his own crest. Illuminates more dignified, he slurs, swaying like a sick willow. You nod solemnly. M-Lord's face really brightens up a room. His servant drags him off before he catches the sarcasm. Midnight approaches. Lanterns now resemble dying jellyfish stranded on shore. Your torches hold steady, mostly. A breeze unspools a ribbon from a nearby oak, setting it ablaze in your peripheral vision. 16th century laws find torchbearers for accidental arson, but you've memorized every marshy escape route. Two lovers huddle by your largest fire bundle, their silhouettes leaning close. Romantic, don't you think? Sighs the girl. You stab another reed into the ground. This one's named Taxes. See how warm he gets. They scatter laughing, their retreat lit by your triumph. Dawn's first gray fingers pry at the horizon. Paper carcasses litter the mud, colored wax pooling like clown vomit. You unknot the spent torches, saving the charred ends for next planting moon. The river belches up a sodden lantern frame, its ribs bare as a plucked goose. A farmer's daughter approaches, eyeing your salvage with a salt-crusted grin. Grandpapa says reed light blinded Napoleon's scouts once. Let M march clean off cliffs. You gift her a leftover bundle for when sugar shoes fail. The last festival goer staggers home, his gilded lantern now a crumpled hat. You dunk your hands in the Loire, washing away smoke and schadenfreude. Survival secret. Let flashy things burn. Endurance prefers calloused palms and slow smoldering spite. Across the water, a single reed torch still flickers, your middle finger to the dawn. The neighbor's boy kicks your scrap pile, willow fronds scattering like startled quail. Why bother hand twisting? He gestures at his glowing tablet. There's an app that designs baskets faster. His voice cracks on app, a pubescent glitch, undermining his tech sermon. You resist mentioning medieval guilds demanded 7-year apprenticeships and 0 bathroom breaks. His boot grinds a half-woven eel trap. Grandma's dead, and so's this crap. The reed cracks, a sound like old knuckles popping. You feel your spine stiffen, that ancestral rage bubbling up from the Loire's muddy banks. Fetch the shears. You snap, palms already lifting a snapped strand. He rolls eyes, but obeys. Now cut here. He severs the broken weft, too close to the base. The whole pattern yawns open, a grinning mouth hungry for repair. Screwed it worse, he mutters, cheeks flushing betread under acne constellations. You yank out 5 adjacent rows, strands falling like unbraided hair. Done that at 11, ruined a bride's dowry basket. That's how I learned the bitter's knot. Silence stretches, thick as riverbank clay. You twist 2 fresh reeds, deliberately crossing them backward. His Adam's apple bobs. But your book says, burn the book. You dart the strand over through the mistake's wake. A jagged chevron emerges sharp as lightning frozen mid-strike. Contemporary basket weaving museums display similar flaws, later revealed as subtle rebellion marks against feudal lords. He leans closer, smell of axe body spray battling your pine resin. Can that hold fish? You shrug. Vikings lined traps with weasel skin threads for extra strength. But we work with what we've got. His pointer finger hovers, a surgeon scared to scrub in. You guide it to the repair's pivot point. Push here when the reed kinks. For 5 breaths, you're conjoined, a 4-handed monster fumbling at redemption's loom. The shed stick slips. He curses in gamer lingo, inventing verbs you'll never understand. You counter with a walnut stain oath, politeness eroded by split oak. Historians still argue whether chevron patterns sped up water drainage or just pleased some long-dead chieftain's eye. He retreats at dusk, clutching his lopsided creation. You watch him trip over the same route thrice, a reminder that grace comes slower than skill. From your roof, crows critique his progress with derisive craws. Night falls, your lamp reveals his abandoned tablet, glowing with digital baskets too perfect to exist. You pocket it, future kindling for winter's first freeze. The bitter's knot winks from the shadows, its jagged edges cradling tomorrow's fragile hopes. Moonlight spills through warped shutters, silver pooling on baskets stacked like sleeping giants. Their curved bellies hold shadows you've woven by lamplight, secrets bundled tight as riverbank snails. Scholars say Egyptian kings buried servants with baskets, eternally organized in the afterlife. Your more practical yours cradled smoked trout last Tuesday. To soften stubborn willow, old guilds soaked reeds in horse piss for weeks. Modern crafters use vinegar, though some traditionalists swear the ammonia stink toughens the weave. One basket sports jagged chevrons, the same pattern archaeologists found inside crusader helmets. Historians still argue whether knights carried love tokens or scratch-proof laundry sacks. Your calloused thumb traces the groove where the neighbor's boy grafted his mistake. It hums faintly, a vibration matching the river's distant growl. Crickets throttle their legs, nature's loom clattering through the night. You cross to the window and freeze. Moonlit reeds sway along the Loire, each tip bowing toward your workshop. A raccoon pawing your scrap pile freezes mid-crime. You nod, a thief acknowledging another. Its tiny hands flutter, mimicking your weaving motions mockingly. The bitter's knot winks from your latest trap, a crooked signature only floodwaters will read. Medieval nuns hid similar marks in abbey tapestries, coded protests against vow-bound silences. You drag a palm down your face, shedding skin cells that'll linger here for decades. Future archaeologists will label them ritual detritus, never guessing you just forgot to exfoliate. Moth wings brush your ear, a failed bid for the lantern. Its blurry body kamikazes into a basket's throat, adding accidental fringe. Your hips creak as you kneel, reeds pricking your shins through threadbare wool. The neighbor's tablet glows in your pocket, a rectangular firefly begging to be drowned. A warped floorboard groans the house, flexing its tired spine. You imagine tomorrow's reeds laughing at your stiff fingers until you start splitting them down to pith. Baskets destined for market tilt like drunk sentries. One lists too far, its contents spilling moonlight across the floorboards. You right it, patting its flank like a spooked mare. The scent of peat smoke lingers, ghost of 1,000 boiled rushes. Your grandmother swore boiling them during a waxing moon added strength, and maybe a little madness. Your knife lies oiled and ready edge tasting of last week's apple peel. Roman basket weavers carried similar blades and reportedly stabbed tax collectors with equal glee. Wind riffles through half-dried sedge, a sound like pages turning in hell's library. You count breaths between gusts, matching your pulse to the silence. An owl hoots twice, the Loire's night shift foreman clocking in. You answer with 3 taps on an oak rib Morse code for go eat voles. Exhaustion tugs your eyelids, but the reeds keep whispering. They speak of spring floods of fingers, yet unbloodied, of mistakes waiting to be renamed design choices. You rise, aching joints harmonizing with the floor's chorus of pops. Tomorrow's first reed glints on the work table, already smirking at your blisters. Moonlight slips through crooked shutters, silvering the baskets that slump like drowsy titans. Their curved sides cradle shadows spun from your lamp's glow, stories coiled tight as snail shells. Experts claim old Egyptian kings entombed servants with their baskets, forever tidy in dusty graves. Yours held smoked trout last week, a humbler kind of afterlife. To bend stubborn willow, olden guilds soaked reeds in horse urine for moons. Today's crafters use vinegar, though a few graybeards still swear by the stink of ammonia. One basket wears zigzagging lines, the same marks found etched inside crusader helmets. Did knights tuck love notes in them, or just dirty tunics? No one agrees. Your rough thumb finds the groove where the neighbor's child botched a stitch. It thrums softly, a murmur synced to the river's low rumble far off. Crickets saw their legs raw, a shrill chorus threading the dark. You shuffle to the window and pause. Moonlit reeds along the Loire bend toward your workshop, a silent bow. A raccoon freezes mid-raid in your scrap heap. You exchange nods, crafters recognizing kin. Its paws twitch, parodying your weaving dance with thief's grace. The bitter's knot winks from your newest trap, a crooked mark only high water will decode. Medieval nuns stitched such signs into tapestries, silent screams in wool and piety. You scrub a hand down your face, skin flakes drifting like fallen stars. Future diggers might call them ritual dust, never knowing it's just dry winter skin. A moth grazes your ear, dive-bombing the lantern in vain. Its fuzzy body lodges in a basket's mouth, becoming unintended decoration. Your knees crack as you kneel, reeds prickling through worn wool. The neighbor's phone glows in your pocket, a blue firefly begging for a watery grave. The floorboard sighs, the house settling its old bones. Tomorrow's reeds will mock your stiff hands until you split them open, revealing their pale hearts. Market-bound baskets lean like tipsy guards. One tilts, spilling liquid moonlight across the planks. You steady it, murmuring comfort as if calming a nervous colt. Peat smoke ghosts the air memories of 1,000 rushes boiled blue-black. Grandma swore brewing them under a fat moon wove in strength, and a dash of delirium. Your knife rests oiled and sharp, edge still sweet from last week's apple. Roman weavers gripped blades like this, and maybe poked impatient tacksmen, just for fun. Wind combs through drying sedge, a hiss like parchment scorching. You breathe between gusts, letting your pulse sink into the quiet. An owl calls twice, night's foreman signing in. You rap 3 times on an oak rib, tapping out dinner's over there, friend. Tiredness weights your lids, but the reeds hum louder. They gossip of spring tides, of unscarred palms, of errors ripe for reinvention. You stand, joints creaking in time with the floor's ancient song. Tomorrow's first reed gleams on the table, already teasing your raw fingertips. Now, watch your breath match the river's slow roll, each inhale softer than the last. Let the reeds chant their old promises, while moonlight stitches the world to stillness.